Alright, let's get started. My name's Dan from Dan's Test Prep. This is Tutor Tuesday. We're going to be going over SAT and ACT style questions today. Per your guys' requests or submissions or whatever. I guess, share my screen. Let me, so I see some people took the ACT on Saturday. Do you guys have any topics from that stood out to you that you want to cover? I usually have SAT questions on here, but I have ACT practice tests as well. Emmanuel, are you asking me for an answer or for an opinion on this? Intelligent intuition. Truth is, I don't know. But I think depending on how much you get involved with something, it can become intuitive to you. Like math. If you do enough math, sometimes the intuition just comes to you. But it takes practice. Anyways, if you guys don't have suggestions, I'm going to pull up some math topics. Let's do like some recent nonlinear functions questions. So let's put our first few questions in here. You got a sloppy grade in your math class and your parents are not happy with the situation. I guess you got to fix that. Let's work on some math. Let's work on some math to help you fix that. Let's do this question. The function f is defined by the given equation. For which of the following values of k does f of k equals 3k? Well, f of k equals to 3k. That's not too bad. We just have to substitute in k into this equation and then see when is it going to equal to 3k. So let me plug that in. So, for us to do here, give me a second to fix my pen. What it's saying here is f of k equals 3k. So what that means is the absolute value of 59 minus 2k. If we just substitute in a k in place of x, that's equal to 3k. Which gives us two solutions. One is that 59 minus 2k is equal to 3k. And we have 59 minus 2k equals negative 3k. Two possibilities. So the first one tells us that 59 is equal to 5k. Second one tells us 59 is equal to negative k. If we just add the 2k to both sides. The closest answer that I see is if we divide everything by 5 here and we get k is equal to 59 over 5. And that gives us answer choice A. Let's take a look at another question. Looks like a algebra 2 type question. We have a table of selected values of a polynomial function, and based on the values in the table, which of the following must be true? Or which of the following must be a factor of p? There's a name for this theorem that I'm going to use. Does anybody know? I have an answer in the chat. Someone says D And I think you're right, but there's something called the polynomial remainder theorem that's very useful to know in these types of questions. Polynomial remainder theorem. It's when p of x is divided by x minus a, and the remainder is f of a. So if you want you basically want for something to be a factor, you want the remainder to be the function, you want the function value to be 0, right? You want the remainder to equal 0. Factor. I see that when x is equal to -1, the remainder is 0. It's a perfect factor. X equals to 2, it's also a 0. You could also just think of it as like graphing the x-intercepts. Yeah, I see that in the chat. Like if you plot this out, it passes through -1 and 2, and then a function might look something like this. You can also just turn zeros into roots as well. It's always x minus the root. So if the roots are at -1 and 2, it's going to be x minus -1, x minus 2. That's answer choice D. Let's do a different one. Let's do a quadratic equation. It's a function defined by that equation. The graph is a parabola, which of the following intervals contains the x-coordinate of the vertex of the graph of f. What do you guys think? I see I see B. Let's see. And if I plot it out, it's going to be kind of a similar situation. X plus 3 means that there's a root at -3, and x plus 1 means there's a root at -1. So it's going to be like this. So the x-coordinate of the vertex is somewhere in between here, between -3 and -1. The only interval that's listed in the answer choices is actually going to be B. That's going to give us the vertex, which is at -2, is between this interval. Okay, let's do exponential, like percentage based kind of problem. So this function p models a population in thousands of a certain city t years after 2005. According to the model, the population is predicted to increase n% every 18 months. What's the value of n? Every 18 months is a really weird way to put it, but that's fine. So, 18 months, I would maybe consider this as 18 months over, and there's 12 months per year. This is 1.5 years. That'll help us because the equation here is written t years. So we can look at what happens when we plug in something like 1.5 years. It would be p of t is going to be 290 times 1.04 to the power of 4/6 times 1.5. So after a period of t equals 1.5, 4/6 is just 2/3, and 1.5 is 3/2. So actually, this cancels out to just 1. And if we look at the exponential growth rate here, 1.04 is the same thing as a 4% increase. So to say this increased by n% every 18 months, the value of n would just be 4. See, I see that in our chat right here. If it asks for a different time period, you could kind of do the same thing and plug it in. But here it works out so that t 1.5 years cancels out with that 4/6. And so every 18 months, it just goes up by that 4%. Yeah, these are nonlinear function SAT math problems. We can do a similar kind of exponential equation. Put in another one here. There's a equation above models the number of members, M, of a gym, T years after the gym opens. Of the following, which equation models the number of members of the gym, Q quarter years after the gym opens? So weird. But what do you guys think we should do here? Because I have a certain answer in mind here. Whatever we choose, if we plug in 1 year, that should be the same thing as plugging in 4 quarters, 4 quarter years. So it should be answer choice A, right? When we plug in 4 quarter years into Q, it ends up becoming an exponent of 1, which is the same thing as if we plugged in just t equals to 1 years. We don't want to make this growth faster. We also don't want to modify the growth rate. It's still going to be that 2%. It's just that we split it into quarters and divide that exponent by 4 instead of doing it in t years. Now let's do like one more of these nonlinear functions. Yeah, if you get a screenshot, I'll paste it in here. In the meantime, let's do this question right here. The table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of y, where y equals f of x plus 4, and f is a quadratic function. What is the y-coordinate of the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane? Well, let me see. So if we just plot this out to get a clue of what's going on, it is, we're way over here at 21, 23, and 25, and the graph kind of looks like, so at 23, it's a value of 8, 21, it's a value of -8, 25 is a value of -8, so it looks kind of like this, which leads me to believe that the y-coordinate, or the y-intercept, is going to be some very large magnitude negative number. It's probably going to go like it's going to cross the y-intercept way down here. And how do we find that? We could set up an equation probably the easiest way, because we have the vertex. The vertex is given at 8 and it's symmetrical around these 2 points. So we could set up an equation like y equals a times x minus 23 squared plus 8. Just to make sure that we have the correct a value, we'd have to substitute in a point. So for example, if I plugged in like 25, the corresponding y is negative 8. So a times 25 minus 23 squared plus 8. Negative 8 equals 4a plus 8, or negative 16 equals 4a, so a equals negative 4. So our a value right here is negative 4. That means the full equation is y equals negative 4 x minus 23 squared plus 8. That makes sense because our intercept, or our vertex is at x equals 23, y equals 8, and it should have a negative slope, which we just solved for. It's going downwards. So to find the y-intercept, we would just need to substitute in x equals to 0. Y equals negative 4 times 0 minus 23 squared plus 8. Whatever 23 squared is times negative 4, that's 529. So that's negative 2116 plus 8. Negative 2116 plus 8 is going to be negative 2208. That is the intercept for this function, y equals f of x plus 4. Y-intercept for this one is negative 2208. If we want to get the y-intercept for the original function, remember that's y equals f of x. That y-intercept, we would just reverse whatever is done here. This is this y-intercept. If we want to get the y-intercept of the original function of just f of x, not f of x plus 4, we would just take negative 2208 minus 4 and get negative 2112. So, summary there, I plotted it out to see what's going on. I solved for the quadratic equation in vertex form. I solved for the a value. I plugged in x equals 0. I got the y-intercept. The last thing we need to do is, since these points were given for f of x plus 4, then we just need to subtract 4. I get back to the intercept for f of x, which is negative 2112. Okay, see some question submissions here. I'm going to start with the first one. The bag of coins one. It says Jim has a bag of coins. The number of nickels n and the number of quarters q totaled 28 coins. The combined value of the coins was $4. Write a system of equations that models this situation. Yeah, we could do, that's something similar to what you might see on the SAT, but they'd probably ask it differently. But basically you just add up the number of nickels and quarters, and that would have to total to 28. And then when you assign their actual monetary value, nickel is worth 5 cents and quarter is worth 25 cents or $0.25. So you write 0.05 n plus 0.25 q equals 4. So then it says use your system of equations to algebraically determine both the number of quarters and the number of nickels that Jim had in the bag. What I might do is start by multiplying that bottom equation by 100. So just for simplicity, we could get, and multiply the top one by 5. So let's say 5n plus 5q equals 28 times 5, 40. Multiply the bottom one by 100 gives us 5n plus 25q equals 400. What I could even do is subtract off the top equation and then add the results. So I'd get something like, I could cancel out my 5n and I could just get 20q is equal to 400 minus 140, which is 260. So if I divide everything by 20, I end up with q equals to 13. And since n plus q equals 28, I could just subtract 28 minus 13 and get that n is equal to 15. Okay. If Jim was given an additional $3 that was made up of equal numbers of nickels and quarters, how many of each coin was he given? I guess that's just another system of equations, or it could be represented as another system of equations, right? N equals to q, and then 0.05n plus 0.25q is equal to 3. Or we can multiply by 100 to make it easier for us. I don't like decimals. 5n plus 25q equals 300. If n equals q, we can also substitute. So like we could do 5q plus 25q equals 300, or 30q equals 300. So the number of quarters is 10. The number of nickels is also 10 because they're equal. And we can just make sure that's 50 cents plus 250, so yeah, that's $3. Another problem that I'm looking at right now, and honestly, I don't know if this is a joke or not. Yeah, what is this? We might be able to solve this one. So what it's saying right here is we're drawing a circle around our pancake. Let's do like pancake right here. We have a perfect circle. Let's call this like initial circle. And we want to draw a circle 1 centimeter away from that original circle. That's at least my understanding. So we have that's the initial circle. The new circle is offset by 1 centimeter. So it doesn't really matter what the original length of the circle was. like we can just call the old circumference is equal to 2 pi r, and a new circumference is, we want the radius to be 1 more than it was before, so it's 2 pi r plus 1, which is exactly equivalent to 2 pi r plus 2 pi. So this is what's added on. So the added length is expected to be 2 pi centimeters. That's true in any case, even where x is a random value from 1 to whatever that is. I see another question was submitted, so let's do this one. Nice. This looks like kind of like a science question, so this is more maybe like ACT. 4 model cells were prepared using dialysis tubing and filling each of them with the same solution. Each of the model cells originally weighed 20 grams. Next, each model cell was placed in a beaker. Each of the 4 beakers contained a different concentration of water. After 24 hours, the mass of each model cell was measured and recorded in the data table below. Okay. Let's type out the answers to these if I can. The first question is explain why the model cell placed in 100% water increased in mass. Looks like if I placed in, well, it says to base our answers on the information below and our knowledge of biology. In my knowledge of biology, there's something called osmosis. And if the concentration of water is higher either inside or outside the cell, that it's going to want to either release or take in water. So each of the model cells originally weighed 20 grams, and they all had the same solution. I'm going to guess that the concentration, the water wanted to move from outside the cell to inside to balance the concentration. Something along that line. Although on the ACT you'd have multiple choice, you wouldn't have to write it out, but this is fine. So what's the concentration of the water in the 4 cells at this start of the experiment? I'm going to say it was 80%, since the cell placed in 80% solution did not change mass. And that's going to be osmosis. Each of the model cells originally weighed 20 grams. So if the percent concentration of water was 80% water and the mass of the model cell did not change, then that's probably the same solution that was placed in the cell. So nothing moved across the cell wall. You guys give me interesting questions. I have all the boring, like SAT style questions. I'm going to find another topic here. Who wants to do circles? I have a circle that has its center at -5, 2 and a radius of 9. An equation of the circle can be written like so, where a, b, and c are constants. What's the value of c? Let me tell you guys, the general formula for an equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So if I just substitute in all the values from the question, we get x plus 5 squared. We get y minus 2 squared. We get 9 squared. So we can actually expand all these out and get something like x squared plus 10x plus 25 plus y squared minus 4y plus 4 minus 81 equals 0. Because this is the format they want us to get it in. Except the last thing I'll do is just combine like terms, right? So we'll get x squared plus y squared plus 10x minus 4y. And we're really interested in plus 25 plus 4 and minus 81. So 29 minus 81 is going to give us negative 52. And finally, when we're comparing all these, the value of c is negative 52. So pretty quick, if you know your circle equation, you can expand things out. You can get a quick answer there. More circle questions? What do you think? I know we just did a crazy one up here. Yeah, negative 52. Yes, should be negative 52. See what else we got. Trigonometry? I haven't seen this question before. Triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. A corresponds to D, and C corresponds to F. C and F are right angles. Let's just draw that out. So A, B, C. C is a right angle. That corresponds to triangle D, E, F, where F is a right angle. It says that tan of A is equal to root 3. That's opposite over adjacent. Tan A equals root 3. DF is equal to 125. What is the length of DE? I think there's an easy way to solve this if you know your unit circle really well. So it says A is 30 degrees. Let's see if that's accurate. I believe it is. But if tangent of A is root 3, it means the ratio of the opposite to the adjacent side is, say, root 3 over 1. And so the hypotenuse here would be the square root of root 3 squared plus 1 squared. The square root of 4, which is 2. Now let me redraw this in a better proportion and show you guys what this actually is. It's going to be, let's call this side x, let's call this side x root 3, and let's call this 2x. This is actually a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Although I think we might have messed up originally where we had a 30 degree. 30 degree should be down here, 60 degrees should be over here. So if DF is 125, and we're looking at this diagram here, this should be 2 times 125, which gives us answer choice D. The length of DE would be 250. That's an interesting one. They have nice geometry questions sometimes. Let's try this one next. This one's talking about rectangles, and the length of a rectangle's diagonal is 3 root 17. The length of the rectangle's shorter side is 3. What is the length of the rectangle's longer side? 3. That's 3 root 17. And then we have this side, I don't know, let's just call it like x. I think you guys know where we're going to go with this, right? A rectangle has 4 right angles. That means this is a right angle. That means we can apply which theorem? You already know it. You already know it. Pythagorean theorem states that the square of the legs is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I get something like x squared plus 9 is equal to 9 times 17. What's 9 times 17? I don't even know. 90 plus 63 is 153. So x squared plus 9 is equal to 153. 153 minus 9 gives x squared is equal to 144. Okay, so x is equal to plus or minus 12. So our answer here is obviously positive 12. But that's all there is to that one. Okay. All right, we have another bio-type question. Seems like an ACT type question. Although, yeah, like I mentioned, they don't have like writing in your answers on the ACT science section. But the scientific reasoning skills are there for sure. This one looks like it's talking about the cabbage tree emperor moth. Does not have ears and might alert them to approaching predators such as bats. They all have wings with scales and hair-like structures called fur, suited to the absorbing the ultrasonic sound frequencies used by bats hunting for food. This absorption reduces the echoes that bounce back to the bats, allowing these moths to avoid detection. Since they're not detected, they don't need to quickly fly away and use more energy. Scientists have observed that other moth species have developed different defense mechanisms. Some moth species have ears and can hear their predators approaching, quickly swerve out of the way. Other moth species fly in a slow zigzag pattern that imitates bees and wasps, which are not desirable prey to bats. What's one advantage of having sound-absorbing fur and scales compared to a different defense mechanism? I don't know, what do you guys think? One thing that comes to mind for me is energy savings. Yeah, exactly. Like some moth, even though they fly slowly or swerve out of the way, that still uses energy, so that's what I would say. Predict how the frequency of the trait for sound-absorbing wings might be expected to change over time. Frequency is in like how many species have this? I would expect it to probably increase if those moths, or is it moths or butterflies? If those moths survive. If those moths survive and those are passing on their genes to future generations, I would expect that to increase, while other bats with less desirable um, like traits will die out. I have space for 2 more questions here. So I guess while we're at it, I can pull up some reading writing, that we really haven't done much on that. Let's pull up this reading question. The question asks, what does the text most strongly suggest about the site discovered by the researchers? So what does it say? Let's see. Paleontologist Lucas E. Fiorelli and colleagues have reported the discovery at a mine in Brazil of several egg clutches, partially preserved single eggs and egg shells from the late Cretaceous period. The researchers have concluded that the area is once a nesting and breeding site for titanosaurs, a group of sauropod dinosaurs. The finding is significant given the previous lack of known nesting sites in northern regions of South America, which led many paleontologists to assume that titanosaurs migrated south to lay eggs. And the question here is asking, what does it suggest about the site discovered? The discovered site. This finding, the area that they found. So the last sentence kind of gives us the clue. It says the finding significant given the previous lack of known nesting sites. Previous lack of known nesting sites in northern regions. So I'm looking for something with north, and I just see D says it is farther north than any other nesting site discovered in South America. That might be true. But let's see. C says it might have been occupied by other sauropods in addition to titanosaurs. I don't really see evidence for that. I just see it talking about titanosaurs. B says it was very difficult to excavate. I don't see anything about how difficult it was to excavate. And A says it's the earliest known example of a titanosaur nesting breeding site. We don't see anything that suggests it's the earliest. But we do see that there was a lack of known nesting sites in the northern regions of South America. So maybe this is farther north than any other nesting site. That's context clues. Let's do one more here. Another kind of main idea question. So main idea of the text. Yeah, it looks really scientific, but let's read it and see what we can figure out. For centuries, the widespread acknowledgement of the involvement of the cerebellum, a dense brain structure in vertebrates, in coordinating motor control in humans, has hindered recognition of other possible functions of the structure. Neuroscience research from the last 2 decades now suggests that the cerebellum regulates emotion and social behavior, and recent research by Ilaria Carta and colleagues has identified a pathway connecting the cerebellum to a center for motivation and reward processing known as the ventral tegmental area, VTA. I see an answer already. Let's see. The main idea, it looks to me like, so I like to summarize these before I answer. It looks to me like there's acknowledgement of the cerebellum and its involvement in motor control. But scientists have rarely studied its other features, and now we're looking at recent research and we see it's also involved in emotion and social behavior. It's more than just motor control. So A says confirms the long suspected role in motor coordination. That's too narrow. Recent advances have challenged widely accepted claims about a pathway connecting VTA and cerebellum. No, it's actually supporting it. Cerebellum has primarily been thought to regulate motor functioning, but in recent years, neuroscience researchers have been uncovering additional functions. Yeah, that all matches up. the technological limitations have historically hindered the study of the cerebellum. No, it wasn't anything technological. So yeah, this one's gonna be C. Anyway, that's our final question. We actually filled up the board today. Thank you guys for joining. Don't forget you can check out all my recordings and my newsletter at explore.dansetsprep.com. And I'll see you guys next week for more SAT and ACT questions.